So you guys probably wouldn't guess this, but given that my name's Muhammad, but I used to like I have grandparents that like used to go to church quite regularly. So I've sat through a mass or two, right? And you ever notice how there's a way of speaking, there's a way of religious speaking that's different from the way we speak normally, right? Right? Like so and you find it often in religion because that tends to be a place where you're not going to have a lot of language innovation, right? You're not going to use new words like perf and savage in church, right? I mean, I guess you could, but you probably won't. So if you know like a phrase like he is risen, right? For Christ. Christ is risen. Nobody talks this way normally. Nobody says, hey, what's up with Jack? Oh, he is risen around 6:30 this morning. Like nobody says that, right? So we have a whole way of talking around that. And at the same time, we have certain words that only fit in that domain. So for example, something like communion, right? So we have, if I can give you this, we have two broad concepts I want to run over. Register, of course, demonstrated by our wonderful picture of a register. Thank you so much for drawing that. And jargon. So jargon, you guys have probably heard the word jargon, but maybe not the word register. So jargon is those words like that have special meaning in a certain discipline or a certain area, right? So for our class, we have a word like pigeon, which we would call, somebody that you talk to, how would you explain it? You say, it's a combination. These are some languages smashed into each other, and boom, a PIDGIN showed up, right? And that we might consider jargon, or we might consider, I think I gave just now the example of communion, right? That we might also consider jargon. But when we look just at vocabulary, sure, we're talking about jargon, but when we incorporate a whole body of way of speaking, this we'll call register, right? So we have those three levels of variation that we talked about, right? Do you guys remember what those were? 3 levels of variation. One of them's pronunciation. One of them is vocabulary, and one of them is grammar, right? So something like he is risen would fit into our grammar spot. Something like communion would fit into our vocab spot. It's not a different dialect really, but we're definitely using a different way of speaking. So I've been to a couple different kinds of church services, and if you've ever been to in some of the churches in the Deep South where I grew up, you find kind of a certain kind of there's a way of speaking in some of the churches where they have like a deep voice and they say like this. Have you heard? Yes, God, right? And you speak to the same preacher outside of church, and they don't sound like that. They're not like, hi, how you doing? It's great to meet you. That doesn't happen, right? Because register is really, it's context dependent, it's topic dependent, right? It doesn't work that way. And you know this because if you take the same way of speaking and you put it in a completely different scenario, it doesn't work, right? So if you're like walking down Dinkytown and there's somebody who like thinks you're cute and they want to take you out, they're like, hey, how you doing? You look good. Want to take you to the movies. Get some popcorn. That never happens. Nobody talks this way, right? That's because register is context dependent. You can use all the same words that you normally use, but because register encompasses a whole lot more, you have this different way of speaking. Does that make sense? Great.